Yes. Okay. So July 75, Srila Prabhupada came to Philadelphia to celebrate Rath Yatra, mainly. That was the main event. And the temple was on the temple was a little building on a street called Woodlawn, I remember that, with a little lawn and a little wood in the building. And we had a thunderous welcome, both at the airport and in the building, tiny building. And wherever Prabhupada came, everybody would come from all over. So this little temple, imagine if all of Europe tried to fit into this building. Or if all of whatever, Radhadeshi. Yeah. So Prabhupada came, and then we had a big kirtan. And then he sat down to lecture. And all the men, these big leaders were there, and all the people with the sticks, the sannyasis, and the GBCs, and the temple presidents. And there was such a tiny temple room that practically took up the whole room. So, some of us other brahmacharis were there, young men. And then Prabhupada noticed his lady disciples were they couldn't even get in. And their noses were pressed to the window pane. And they were just looking at Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada. Hari Hari. So they were looking, but they weren't inside. They were like, it's like Prabhupada said, if you want to taste honey, you have to open up the jar and taste it. You can't just lick the jar, right? So Prabhupada's inside, he's about to lecture on the Bhagavatam. No, he was lecturing the Bhagavatam in the morning. But the ladies, they were just locked out, So Prabhupada saw how eager they were. They were at all the windows, and they had their noses and their faces, and there was many of them. So Prabhupada said,
let them in. They want to hear. They want to hear.
Yes. So then Prabhupada forced the leaders to crush up, he sort of packed them into a corner, all the GBCs and the sannyasis. And they just sort of put them in a corner so the ladies could come in, so there was room. So I noticed that right away. Prabhupada was very, he was an equal opportunity founder acharya. He was giving equal opportunity to his men and women disciples to hear. Now, let's contrast that, if we might, with when Prabhupada was in Philly. We say Philly for Philadelphia. With how Prabhupada treated a couple of lady reporters who were interviewing him. And they were asking about many things, including women's liberation. So Prabhupada just hit him right between the eyes, and he said, actually, so-called women's liberation, is a trick by the men. It's a trick by the men to get you ladies independent from men. You're not under the thumb of men anymore, you think. You're not under their care, actually. That's the Vedic idea, that ladies are protected by men, they're not exploited. The trouble is, men do exploit, so therefore, women's lib is kind of a reaction to that. But Prabhupada said, it's actually a trick by the men to make you think you're free so that they can just have sex with you, and then they'll go away. They just go away. They're not responsible, and you're left. If there's conception, then you have this tough choice. Am I going to have an abortion? Because abortion was legal in America by then. 2 years earlier, 73, Roe versus Wade, Supreme Court decision. Or if you take the child to term and you give birth, then you have to go begging from the government. Some alms, Prabhupada said, to beg alms from the government to support the child. Is this liberation? So they were like, In Chicago, just a week or two earlier, there was other lady reporters, and she asked, "Why do you shave your head? Why does everybody shave it? Why do you have bald heads?" It's like I had my head shaved this morning. So Prabhupada said, "Why do you have bare legs? Better to have warm legs and a cool head." He knew how to kind of deflect questions that were could be a can of worms, as we say, but he just sort of lightened the mood. Now, so the main event was Rath Yatra. So we didn't know this. We knew this later, after Prabhupada passed away, actually. But all his life, Prabhupada, he had to tolerate so many physical ailments, as we all do. But Prabhupada, well, in his last days, Prabhupada was in England, and he had to have a urinary tract procedure. And the surgeon noticed that because of the shape of Prabhupada's urinary tract, he must have suffered his whole life from having, too frequent urges to pass urine. And that's actually the fact. Prabhupada did have that, because right during Rath Yatra in Philadelphia, we take the carts, kind of amble out of the lot, and it was still kind of green area, leafy area. So very soon after the parade started, Prabhupada stopped the cart that he was on. He said, "Stop." And he got down from the cart, and everybody wondered, what's going on? Why is Prabhupada stopping the parade? And then he started to walk into the woods, and people started to follow him in the woods. And Prabhupada said, No, I'm just answering nature's call. You don't have to follow me into the woods. But Prabhupada had to tolerate so many physical ailments, especially when he was with us, because he was with us in his last years. And he was just so tolerant that we didn't know everything he was suffering from. But then sometimes it would be obvious. All right. And then Prabhupada, the parade went through downtown Philadelphia, and then it ended up in a green around an art museum. And then Prabhupada, and there was a slope on the back of the green, so Prabhupada sat on a seat at the top of the slope, and we all kind of sat a little below because there was a slant. Now in 1975 in America, there was a fad amongst college kids. It was called streaking. Anybody know what that is? Okay, we have one person who knows.
It was a thing in Sweden too, it was reflected in the media in Sweden.
Okay.
I grew up.
So it starts in America and then everybody starts imitating it, right? So streaking means college kids take off all their clothes, so they're buff naked, you're in your birthday suit, right? You say. And then you just run through some area, and you just to shock the people, right? So Prabhupada's giving this speech, and all of a sudden, a boy and a girl just streak the place. Prabhupada didn't bat an eye, but sometimes he would work those kind of things into his lectures. Like in San Diego, he was at a Rath Yatra in Balboa Park, and he had just started his lecture, and all of a sudden somebody speaks up. You can hear this on the recording. Some guy starts screaming, and Prabhupada says, "What did he say?" And Purandara Prabhu, my grandmother, says, "He says, Srila Prabhupada, he wants to have sex more than once in a month." Because that's kind of like the Vedic thing. If you want to have, the sex is for producing children, so if you want to do that, you wait to the appropriate time. So he wants to be free, right? He wants to be free free like a monkey, to have sex more than once in a month. So Prabhupada just completely switches gears, and he starts talking about the Vedic conception of sex and what it's for. It's for liberating souls who want to come into the world, and you free them to go back to Godhead. You raise them to graduate from the cycle of birth and death. It's not a contact sport. That's the idea. Sex. It's a sacred act. raise people in God consciousness. But it was striking how Prabhupada had started a lecture about something else, I think about the meaning of Ratha Yatra. And he just totally switched gears and just started focusing on this young man, who presumably sat there through it because there was no more outbursts. Okay, the streakers. So, 75. Yeah, I had seen Prabhupada in Miami, I told you about that, on the beach. And then Philadelphia, and then I only saw Prabhupada one more time. We didn't know when Prabhupada was leaving, although as soon as Prabhupada came to America, he would say, I am an old man, I could leave at any time, and he's begging people who don't know what he's talking about to please understand Krishna consciousness right in the beginning, you know. I remember one recording Prabhupada saying, so, have you seen picture of Krishna? Krishna? You know? Krishna? And people, there's dead silence. And Prabhupada, then you hear him say, oh, like he remembers, they don't know anything about what he's talking about. So he's trying to give them something about Krishna, and then he's saying, so you must give this to your countrymen, just because he wants it to continue. It's very touching. Yeah. Another recording, you can hear that there's probably only one person in the audience. This is at the Bowery. The Bowery. What's the Copenhagen equivalent of the Bowery? Christiana?
Christian. The Bower is like left and
Christian.
it used to be Vesterbro, it's quite funky nowadays.
So, Prabhupada lived in the lowest part of New York because he was homeless. He didn't know where to, so somebody gave him a place. And he's talking about Vrindavan. And again, no one knows. This is just one old lady there. You can hear her talking sometimes. And so Prabhupada said, or the lady said, why have you come? Why have you come here? Well, it is my duty, Prabhupada. It is my duty. My spiritual master has ordered that I go to the West and preach Krishna consciousness. So, otherwise, I was very happy. I was very comfortable living in Vrindavan, Krishna's place. When Krishna comes to earth, he comes to Vrindavan. And I miss Vrindavan. And the lady says, yes, I can see that. You miss your home. Yes, Prabhupada says, but it is my duty to tell you people, just heard today about Vrindavan. So whether Prabhupada had an audience of 1 or 100,000, which, 100,000 maybe that's a little much, or 10,000, Prabhupada was the same. He was always trying to give people Krishna. So the last time we saw him was in Los Angeles in June 76, June 2nd through the 11th. He had just come from Hawaii, and he said during Bhagavatam class, so I'm simply traveling around the world, and I'm asking everyone, why are the days of the week in the order they're in? Why is it Moon Day, Mars Day, Mercury Day, Jupiter Day, Venus Day, Saturn Day, Saturday, and Sunday? If you know a little astrology, you know the days of the week are associated with planets. Why? And no one knew what to say. No one knew what to say. I told this story already, come on. Let me tell it. So no one knew what to say. So a devotee raised his hand and said, well, Srila Prabhupada, Sunday is the first day, because it's the Lord's day. And Prabhupada said, don't bring in religion. He always wanted to establish Krishna consciousness on a scientific basis. Yes, it's the perfection of religion, but because the religion in the modern age is scientific materialism, and the scientists are the high priests, he always wanted to establish Krishna consciousness as a science, as an art and a science, scientifically, philosophically.
Don't bring a religion.
So he said the sun is the first day because it's actually closer than the moon. And that, wow, that shocked everyone. So the Vedic conception of the universe is different than the empirical conception. So Prabhupada dropped that bomb. I won't go into that anymore, but just an example of how Prabhupada was trying to establish Krishna consciousness on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam, spiritual science, and not on the ever-changing science, which is never conclusive. Just like in Los Angeles during that time, I saw a headline on a newspaper. It said, "Scientists are no longer sure why the sun shines." As though they're ever sure, right? You can never be sure empirically of anything. There's always something you haven't considered empirically. So. All right. Don't bring in religion. One thing that happened during this visit was the devotees previewed for Prabhupada's pleasure a new movie called Spiritual Frontier. It was all about New Vrindavan. Has anybody seen this? It's an old movie.
Yeah.
It's from the 1970s. I mean, it's really old. Spiritual Frontier. It's about working the land, with horses and oxen and living simply, off the land. That was before New Vrindavan got into a lot of construction. And Prabhupada liked it. At one point in the movie, it showed a devotee making puris. And Prabhupada stopped. He said something into the mic. He said, "So, they look very good. Can you make me some puris?" So immediately some devotee ran in the kitchen and started making Prabhupada puris. It was funny. So of course we were watching the movie, but we were like this, watching the screen and then watching the Vyasasana. We were watching Prabhupada's reactions. It was always like that. Okay, so that was a movie previewed, and how about... Oh, I got to go on a couple of more morning walks with Srila Prabhupada. The first was in Miami, but it was a little sweeter in Los Angeles because it was June, so it was early sunrise, not as early as Scandinavia in summer, but by 6 a.m., the sun was up, and it was, the Pacific Ocean was there. It was and there was a park. Prabhupada went to Santa Monica Park for very nice sunny morning walks. The sun was shining through the trees, and mostly it was brahmacharis, single students, celibate students were there. There was a few householders and ladies, but it was mainly single men with Prabhupada, sannyasis and brahmacharis. So we're walking through the park, and Prabhupada always walked very fast. We couldn't keep up with him. He could have been our grandfather, but he was a very fast walker. So we're struggling to keep up. And I noticed at the other end of the park, there's one little elderly lady sitting on a park bench, and she's dressed very nicely. She looked like a very aristocratic lady, but she's all alone in the park, just enjoying, the early morning in the park, right? And then we're walking the path that we're on, that Prabhupada's on, and we're following him. We're walking right toward her, right in her direction. And we're about, 75 strong, this blaze of saffron, it looked like a saffron army. And we're walking toward this delicate-looking, aristocratic-looking elderly lady. So we're getting closer and closer, Prabhupada's stopping and answering questions, and he's charging on. And then we're getting really close, and the path, it goes right by the bench, where she's sitting. And I was thinking, wow, what's going to happen? Is she going to freak out? Or because we have shaved heads, tilak, dhotis, probably something she had been too used to. So we're getting closer, and Prabhupada's leading the charge, and then just as he walks right by her, he looks at her very charmingly, and he says, "Good morning." He doesn't say Hare Krishna.
No.
He says something familiar to her. And she looks, and she gets this look on her face, and she says, "Isn't that nice?" He gave her a favorable impression of the devotees just by saying something familiar. That's his mercy. So I always remember that. And, well, the heaviest thing that happened when Prabhupada came to Los Angeles, I don't know how understandable this will be to all of you, but it was 76 June, okay. So in the previous year, Prabhupada had been way ahead of his book trust that was based on, it was the only chapter, that was the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, Los Angeles. And so he had been way ahead in his translation work. The book trust was 17 books behind him. We were sitting on, manuscript 17 books worth. And Prabhupada was getting really frustrated. He thought, what's the use of me translating if you people can't even keep up with me? So in that 75, the previous year, he went on a morning walk on the beach. It was a famous morning walk. And Prabhupada was asking how many books behind, 17, Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, I'm not inspired to translate anymore until you people catch up with me. So the head of the press, the two heads, it was Ramaswara Maharaj by then, and Radha Ballava Prabhu. They offered this. They said, Srila Prabhupada, we have calculated that we can, if we really try hard, we can come out with a book every 2 months now. We're going to really step it up, and try hard. Yeah. So what was Prabhupada's response? No. You must produce all of these books, 17 books in 2 months. That's what you must do. Yeah, that's practically what happened. The head of the people in charge of the press, they practically fainted on the spot, And Ramaswara Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, that's impossible. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Yeah, that's the famous line. That's when it happened. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So when Prabhupada said that, these two managers of the press, they just stopped in their tracks on the beach. Meanwhile, everybody kept going with Prabhupada. And they realized that if we don't do this, we are useless. Prabhupada wants this, and somehow or other, we have to do the impossible. So when they surrendered to that order, then immediately they were flooded with ideas how to do it. And so what they finally came up with was 24-hour shifts. 24-hour, round the clock, in 3 shifts, 8-hour shifts. And that's how those books were produced. 17 books in 2 months. And it was insane. I wasn't there. I got there just afterwards. But the devotees told me how it was, you could take I don't think they even went to Mangalarti. I think it was get up, chant your rounds, and get to work, and then you took prasad, and then go to sleep, and non-stop shifts, just constantly like that. And then they came to Prabhupada during the marathon. 2 books a week. That's what it was coming out to. Yeah, it was about 2 books a week they were averaging. So it was insane. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, there's going to be mistakes in these books because usually we go through a whole process of correction. Prabhupada said, that's okay, just get them out. Fix it later, we say in English, fix it later. Prabhupada didn't say that, but that was paraphrasing it, fix it later, because that was his priority. He wanted the books out before he would leave this world. He didn't know how long he had, and he didn't have much longer. So the next year when he came in 76, now we're back to June 76, by then, the people who produced those books, they were the first people to read those books. And most of the books that were produced at that time, it's called the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Golden books right behind Gaur Nitai Prabhu's head. Yeah, right. And it's all about, this is the definitive biography of Krishna and his Lord Chaitanya incarnation. And it's very philosophical, but it's also very intimate. It gets because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, but he's in the mood of Radha. It's very esoteric. He's in the mood of Krishna's greatest lover. Radha, the greatest lover of God, Radha Rani. We asked Prabhupada, who is Radha Rani? Oh, she's the best devotee. That's how Prabhupada introduced Radharani to ISKCON. Oh, she's the best devotee. So when those books came through production, the BBT workers, the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust workers, they were privy to the whole manuscript, so they were the first people to read all of these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, including his intimate ruminations on the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, especially toward the end of the book. So when I got to Los Angeles in January '76, I got there and I became the indexer to the books, but I was invited pretty soon after I got there by a group of Bhaktivedanta Book Trust workers who had produced those books, and they said, oh, Suresvara, come in the evening, we're going to have CC, Chaitanya Charitamrita readings. You please come. You're cordially invited. This is your personal invitation. So I thought, oh, that's nice. I haven't read that. It just came out, and I haven't had a chance to read it, because I was memorizing the Bhagavad Gita. So that was my meditation, the ABCs. CC is like the XYZs. That's like way advanced down the road. But I was memorizing the Gita, and that was the center of my meditation. So I went there, and I was amazed, because as soon as I got there, I heard devotees minimizing the value of Bhagavad Gita. And they were saying, oh, Prabhu, this is just the ABCs. We got the real nectar. We got Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and the intimate pastimes of Krishna and the gopis. I knew something was up. I knew something was fishy. They're minimizing the Gita? How are you going to even understand the intimate pastimes of Krishna and the gopis unless you understand you're not this body? Unless you understand the cosmos, unless you understand who Krishna is first. Without understanding his lotus feet, how are you going to understand his smiling face? You'll think it's the smile of some playboy in this material world, right? So I didn't go back, because they were just minimizing the Gita. Oh, it's just about the three modes of material nature, Prabhu. There's much more. Oh yeah? Well, I need to understand the ABCs before I get to the XYZs. So anyway, the closer it got to Prabhupada's visit, the more the leaders of the community were disturbed by these devotees who were sort of advertising themselves as being in the mood of the gopis. They would walk around Venice and Wansika, the Palms district of Los Angeles, with these beatific smiles on their faces, like, we got the real nectar, and you poor people, you don't know what you're missing. Of course, there was a ladies' group, they were doing the same thing, and of course it was probably only a matter of time before they got together, the men and the women. But luckily, what happened was Prabhupada came to town in June, came to the OK Corral. He came to town, and he'd been sort of hearing that some of his BBT workers were indulging, but he didn't have the full